really, really love for you to be a teacher. And I said, well, what is the ultimate motive? What is it that you're attempting to accomplish? And they said, well, we would like to set up a colony here on Earth. And I said, well, I don't know that I should be involved in the likes of such. And they said, well, we would really appreciate it if you would. And I said, well, I'm going to have to go off and run my own life. And basically, I'll get back to you, or you can visit me at some future point, and we'll discuss what needs to be going from there forth. And so anyway, they took off in their ship, and I was left at the campground, and I basically reins of the situation over to a couple of other individuals who I thought were upstanding. Well, in my absence of a few months, I learned that these given individuals had basically hypnotized, in some manner, way, shape, or form, all of those who were the devotees or devout followers of the ETs that had been there originally. And they basically proceeded to tell these individuals that basically the starship was going to come back, and when it came back, they were going to be given a ride to whatever dimension they wished to be deposited in. And of course, this was completely false, but like I said, it was going on behind my back, and I'm sure the ETs had no knowledge of it either. So as a result, these kind of very base human beings were fleecing these people for everything they could get out of them and growing rich in their bank account. Well, of course, the word spread, and it didn't take long, and it got to the ears of the FBI, and the FBI raided the compound and arrested the individuals that were involved, and they were immediately jailed and then in turn sentenced to prison. So then from there, I went on down further into the Santa Cruz Mountains, and I happened to see a flyer that was stapled to a telephone pole, and it was telling about an exhibition that was going on at an old theater, and it was happening a couple of weekends away. So I took the flyer and I deposited it in my car, and I went back, and of course I came back a couple of weeks later, and then in turn I went to this presentation. Now the odd thing was, and I say it was very odd, okay, this individual was very, very intellectually inclined, and he was very smart, and he was very intuitive, as he was himself, okay? The very odd thing was that finally when the presentation gets around to being presented, he come to the stage inside the theater that held maybe 1,000 people at best, with seats and a balcony and all that kind of good stuff, one of these old-timey theater type things. And basically he stood there in front of us on the stage, and all of a sudden it was like his whole character changed. And it seemed to me that he was basically being mentally manipulated and utilized as a voice box for a third party who wasn't present in the room. And he went on and on and on and described all kinds of different metaphysical aspects and all kinds of metaphysical truths and all this kind of stuff. And basically he had won over the entire 1,000 people with very little effort whatsoever. But the odd thing was, you couldn't approach him. In other words, it was almost like he had a force field around him when he got off the stage, because the presentation had gone on for maybe a couple of hours. And he got off the stage, and as he was coming forward amongst the people, they could not physically get real close to him. And so finally he got to me, where I was sitting kind of, I'd say about halfway back from the stage, and I had a good view and all that kind of stuff. And as I approached, it was like all of a sudden his awareness picked up that I was standing there. And so I come over and I shook his hand, and I'm saying, I'm trying to understand who it is that's speaking to you. And he said, well, whatever do you mean? And I said, look, there are those of us that have awareness far beyond the normal means and have chosen to use gifts that are not normally available, other than a person having to desire them to the extent that they manipulate them and start beginning to use them. So anyway, I am aware of who you are, and I can see through you and understand that there is a third party somewhere that is manipulating you. And he said, oh, no, that's just a bunch of bunk. And I said, well, it appears to me that your character completely altered, and is still altered to a large degree. And not only that, but your very serene blue eyes suddenly turned black as soon as you were on the stage talking to us. Now, that would imply to me that you're under the possession, control, etc. of an alien being. And he said, no, that's not true. And eventually he went away. I mean, he just went on out and went through the lobby and everything else, and he disappeared. And I never saw any more flyers of that nature or anything else. Now, the third time, okay, was basically an encounter of the third kind. I was driving my car up around the Santa Cruz Mountains, once again, which is a lovely place. It's got kinds of different things, all kinds of huge trees that are very, very, very old. So anyway, I was driving down Highway 17, I think it was, and the road, of course, is very curvy and has even some hairpin turns in it, so you've got to be very careful. Unless you're very familiar with the road, it's not somewhere you would want to travel at great speed. So anyway, I stopped along the side of the road and parked across the road from a kind of like a modern, well, not a modern, but I mean kind of like a general store, okay? And they had hot dogs and hamburgers and various other hot sandwiches, and they also sold cold drinks, and they sold all kinds of various sundry items and all this kind of stuff. So I had acquired me a cheeseburger and a Coke, okay? And I went across the street with me Coke and me cheeseburger back to me car, and I rolled the windows down, and I started the engine because I didn't want to run my battery down, but I wanted to listen to music as I sat there and ate. So I was eating my cheeseburger and drinking me Coke, and I was listening to the radio, which, of course, back then in the 70s, I was, commonly listening to all the tunes of that time period, of course, like the Beach Boys and the Beatles and all these various groups. Anyway, I was just about devouring my last bite of cheeseburger, and I happened to look across the road, I'd say about 3 football fields away, into a dense patch of forest, and my eyes traced up some of the trees there, and lo and behold, above the trees, hovering about 200 feet above them or so, there was a silver craft. And I couldn't tell if it was round or diamond-shaped or exactly what it was because the sunshine was shimmering off it like crazy. And it was like as soon as I became consciously aware that they were sitting there, the car died, the radio went off, and I could not start the car back or anything of that nature. So I'm saying to myself, well, who are you and why are you here? Because like I told you, I'm very intuitive. I have a very strong telepathic ability. And I didn't get any reply at first. And I reached out and I reached out and I reached out. And finally I got this telepathic message telling me that, hello, we are there and we are here and we are only looking in on you. We want to know, how you're doing because you're running around with this broken nose. So I immediately began to say, okay, maybe this is the Arturians again, and this time they're checking on me because they feel a bit guilty since they haven't taken this tracking device out of my nose. So I'm saying, okay, well, all right, you're checking on me, so that means that at least you have my welfare or my best welfare in your heart or mind or what have you. So I'm not going to count you as an enemy, but I do hold you accountable for not taking this device out of my nose. Because obviously, even though our physical medical science may not be prepared to remove such a tracking device from my physical broken nose without preparing the nose and repairing the nose, I'm sure that your science medically would be far more advanced than ours. So I'm sure it wouldn't take you long. And they said, oh, no, we're not going to be doing that because we're finding that you're the most interesting individual with all kinds of encounters, not only of the ET or extraterrestrial design, but also with all kinds of spirits and all kinds of phantoms and all kinds of entities and all kinds of things. And so we've been tracking you and we've been going to making a history of all these encounters that you've had. And of course, we in turn have been sharing with our brothers from the Pleiades and our brothers from several other galaxies and so on and so forth. And I said, well, isn't that wonderful? And so finally the ship began to hover upwards, okay? And the next thing I knew, it just completely vanished. It went straight up in the air and could no longer be seen. And my awareness said, yeah, they're gone. And it was at that time that my engine would start once again, and my radio was playing, of course. And I'd already finished me cheeseburger, basically speaking, and half me Coke. And I said, oh, this is just weird as the hell. Because, I mean, yes, I'm very open-minded, and I'm very intuitive, and I have been studying the occult basically since birth and been very much aware and in tune to spirituality and the spiritual nature of things. But at the same time, you still have the human aspect in the saying, well, that was a rather strange encounter. And, of course, my spirit is saying, yes, indeed it was, but it's over with now, so go ahead and carry on with the rest of your day. So, of course, I pulled out. I've had all kinds of strange and unusual encounters, and basically they have widened my perspective from all kinds of different ways and all kinds of different aspects. And that's just me. So I come forward with you tonight, and I say that, hey, if you're out there and you're listening, those of you who are into ufology, or those of you that are into pyramids or Atlantis or Lemuria or any of these other societies, or you have opinions that you've festered or you have questions that you would like answered, then I suggest that, you're welcome to call in, and by all means, do bend your ear and listen to us, because we'll be here every Saturday night from this point in time forward at these hours from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern, thanks to the gratuitous nature of my divine host. Well, actually, she is my producer, okay, since I guess I'm the host to have it grammatically correct. And that is, of course, the lovely T.J. Morris, who basically is coming out of a cave, in a matter of speaking, because she's been there, but she's always been in the background. So now we ask her to come forward in the foreground so that she can reach out to all her contactees and have all myriad associations, organizations, and so forth, who basically, I would not say she's lost contact with, but at the same time, she's been kind of what you'd call nestled, okay? And I mean, we all go through these periods in life where we like to nestle ourselves simply because we've got a lot going on, and there's a lot happening to us personally in our personal lives that oftentimes detract us from that which we do outwardly. So, TJ, might you have another 2 cents you'd like to add to the situation?
I like listening to your stories, and you remind me of so many television shows. What I'm sharing, well, I've shared life in television, but very rarely have I appeared on television. When Will I Be Loved with Stephanie Powers, when she used my, they used my showroom, my corporate showroom in Atlanta, Georgia, and I understand you're from Valdosta, Georgia, so you could appreciate that the southernness in me was, I was just a standby. On the escalator, my husband and I, for hours, they got to use my backdrop as she was playing a person such as myself. I was actually the person with the real life, and she was the actress, and my husband loved Stephanie Powers. That was his perfect woman ideal. Oh, my God. So, and I got my children back in the day in California when I had a showroom there for my corporation, was down in the California markets. We did all kind of alternative to leather, Quercus oak, and clothes and shoes and jewelry, and I actually got to go to Spain then, but that was in California, and I understand you're from California too. So I find it interesting. My television days in California and Georgia, somehow now I'm in the panhandle of Florida, and I've been doing radio, but a girl, Susan, that was on last night, starting her new platform on my radio show under my brand, TG CT Radio, Susan Johnson, she told me today my numbers from a long time ago in Beaver Dam, Kentucky. So I lived in Kentucky, for those of you that follow channelers, and we had Kentucky very well known for the 70s and people that channeled spirituality. And the most famous friend of mine in Kentucky was Carla Ruckert. She became Carla McCarty, and of the Love and Light community. And, of course, I do the LNL, or Love and Light community, and the Ascension Center. So we're bringing together all of our history with the Ascension Center organization, ACO, with the Alien Contact Organization, and it's funny that I'm beginning all over again, and like Richard said, bringing me back out to all those in social media. My background originally was law enforcement, but I was taken as a child, as a small child. So my story goes back, and you can read it in books on Lulu and Amazon, but UFO I wrote for UFO Digest 2006.